Julia from Unthinkable, and I'm here with David Meiswinkle, the president of the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry. Hi, David.
Hi, Julia. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thank you so much for being willing to chat with me today. I just want to bring everyone up to speed on all the exciting things that are going on in the Lawyers Committee, and this year being the 20th anniversary of September 11th. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for covering the issues. Thank you.
Before we get started, I wanted to read some of your bio, if that's okay. I'm not going to assume that everybody knows who you are or is familiar with your accomplishments or your professional experience. So let me take a minute and share that with everyone. So David Meiswinkle, Esquire, president of the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry, is a former criminal defense attorney, retired police officer of 23 years, and former U.S. Army veteran. He founded the New Brunswick Taxpayers and Tenants Association, as well as the New Brunswick Reporter, a community newspaper. His activism and articles outlining municipal corruption brought federal authorities into New Brunswick, New Jersey, which led to major criminal investigations and arrests, indictments, and convictions of prominent local politicians. After leaving New Brunswick, David served as secretary of the New Jersey Reform Party and was a national delegate to the Reform Party convention in Long Beach, California. David also ran as an independent candidate for governor against Chris Christie in 2009 with the designation Middle Class Empowerment. That's cool. He also ran as an independent candidate for Congress against Chris Smith in 2010 with the designation American Renaissance Movement. David is the founder and president of New Jersey 9/11 Aware, a nonprofit organization founded in order to educate the public of the need for a new unbiased investigation into September 11th. David is also the co-host of Quantum Matrix Radio and co-founder of Quantum Matrix Alternative Media, LLC. And he is a board of directors member of the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry. And it looks like, I was wondering where you went to school. You got your BA from Rutgers and an MA from NYU, and then you got your JD from Seton Hall Law School. Very cool. So you're living in New Jersey now?
I am in New Jersey, yes.
Well, cool. I'm originally from Long Island, but I'm living on the West Coast now. So we're chatting over about 3,000 miles here. So let's hope that our connection stays good.
Okay, very good.
Good. So I have some questions for you. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, one thing I've been wondering personally, as you've done so much work with 9/11 and activism, etc., how did you get involved with 9/11? Like, why did you gravitate toward this cause? How did that happen for you?
Right. It's sort of like a natural progression for me. I've always, I won't say be critical, but I've always looked at what's going on and analyzed it from a government perspective, being I was working as a police officer in actually a very corrupt town. All right, so I don't have necessarily the respect, although I'd like to, for government that some people do. In other words, I question a lot of things because I've seen it from the inside. And 9/11, when that happened, it raised a lot of questions. But before that, I had questions going back to the Oklahoma bombing. I thought that was very suspicious. I was a police officer then, and I was very concerned about Waco, with the massacre at Waco, how unnecessary that was. So I was questioning the actions of government at that time. And Ruby Ridge, where Randy Weaver and his wife were attacked, and his wife was killed, his son was killed, and he was wounded. That seemed to be totally unnecessary, unjustified, and I had questions about that. But going back then, when I was in high school, I was the class president. I remember at the graduation, Bobby Kennedy had just been killed, and Martin Luther King right before him. And I was very upset about that. And as the years went by, I did some investigation and found out that the official story wasn't accurate at all with reference to what happened to them. And then you go back to John Kennedy when I was very young, and I remember that happening.
Sure.
And that was a trauma. There was not a trauma like that until 9/11. So I was part of both those traumas, one as a boy and then as a man, as a police officer. And so I carried with me through those years a cynicism, maybe, or skepticism about government, that you really have to look at it closely, what they're doing, and it's not always in the best interest of the people that they supposedly represent. So 9/11 was a shock. It turned the world around, basically, redirected the country, and it needed to be looked at closer. So that's what one of the things I decided to do, is to look at it a little closer from different vantage points. And I started out, eventually, as you mentioned, I did run for governor, and there was a number of people who ran for governor. I was independent. Nobody even knew. You need money to run. Nobody knows who you are. But one of the things I did do, and I was the only one who said that we need a new 9/11 investigation, and that I criticized Chris Christie because he was the U.S. attorney at that time brought in, and I thought that he had some responsibility for the removal of the debris, or the from ground zero, the metal, the steel that should have been examined. So I thought that whole thing should have been looked at, and I called it. Of the candidates, I was the only one that stressed 9/11. Shortly thereafter, I heard about architects and engineers. Actually, I was at a dance, you don't believe it, and the woman I was dancing with, she said something about architects and engineers, and I had never heard of them. So I got the website and I went on, and they were just, you're a young organization, but they were prominent. I said, well, I got to go up to Connecticut to meet this guy, Richard Gage. I want to hear him talk. So I did go there up to Connecticut to Hartford, and I saw him talk, and I got involved. And I became the coordinator for New Jersey. And then I wanted to, then other people were thinking of starting something up as far as lawyers. And so then we did that. So there was a progression as to why I got involved in 9/11. Well, I think everybody should, look at it with a little more circumspection. It's just it was so tragic and so horrendous that I think people were frightened to look at it, or fearful. And you really can be fearful if you look at the implications, because if you dig a little bit in, below the topsoil, you're going to find out a lot of other possibilities that happened, including, that it could be false flag, and it could be even homegrown, some of it. All right, so that becomes kind of fearful, because that's your government you want to trust, and maybe they're not being forthright, and they don't deserve to be trusted.
I see. It makes a lot of sense, of course. I find it interesting how you were so young, when the JFK assassination occurred. I was 13 when 9/11 occurred, and you described it perfectly. It was a trauma, a shock, and something that, I don't know, didn't sit right with me. It was upsetting, and I wanted to look critically at it.
Right. Well, when John Kennedy was killed, I went to Catholic school, and all of a sudden, it was in the anthracite coal mining area in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. That's the home of Yuengling Brewery, if you ever heard of Yuengling beer.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I've been there.
It's pretty good. But anyway, I used to walk home and every day past that brewery. It's on the side of a mountain. And you can smell the hops and see the guys with the kegs, lifting them. And you can take tours now. They still store the beer back in the mountain. It's at 40 degrees in a cave, and they'll take you into the cave where they store it. Anyway, all of a sudden the church bells started ringing in the mountains. A lot of just church bells, and the guy next to me says, "Oh, Monsignor must have died." And one of the teachers came in to call our teacher out, who was like the principal, and she went out. And then when she came back, the nun, she had tears in her eyes. And she says, well, the president's been shot. So that, he hadn't been declared dead yet, but he was, it didn't sound good. So we went home that day and we sat, I remember, under a maple tree, the kids on our block, and we were just talking about it, what's going on. And then I remember, I guess, I don't know, a day or two later, watching TV live, and they were bringing Oswald out from the police department, and the guy comes up and shoots him live, Jack Ruby. I said, holy cows, I can't believe this, just because I almost did a backflip. I said, wow, I believe it was live. I'm pretty sure it was. And so, I mean, as you're young, you start putting that all together, and then you start doing your research on the Kennedy assassination, and you find out that it seemed to be covered up. The people that were appointed, they put Allen Dulles, who was the head of the CIA that Kennedy fired, on the commission. What a joke. Just to begin with. I mean, you can't put you have a rigged deck to begin with. So that's how they do these investigations. It seems like they're rigged, in a sense, with people that they can count on, and they get a decision that they're comfortable with. So that was a carryover to the 9/11 Commission. That's what I look at.
Absolutely. The 9/11 Commission was underfunded, set up to fail. We could give you a long list there. Wow, that's so interesting. Having seen your work and, all the way back to last year at the 19th anniversary, I remember watching Justice Rising. I always wonder what motivates these advocate leaders such as yourself to really get involved. And it's those memories like we have as kids. I don't know. I personally believe children are very good at detecting lies. So it's interesting to hear the stories where children can pick up on the fact that something is not quite right, and the way we remember these things will stay with us forever. I have a similar memory of seeing us bombing Iraq, actually, in like 2003. Because I didn't understand at the time, but I thought that we were getting the people that somehow had done 9/11 to us. And I mean, I was in high school and I didn't understand. It was all the war on terror, and I believed my government a little bit, but I knew that something still wasn't right there. The buildings must have been, they looked like they were blown up,
Yeah. Well, listen, that's interesting you mentioned Iraq, because for me it was Vietnam. And when I was at Rutgers, I was the president of the Rutgers student body. And I used to have long hair and a beard. And I'd be at a megaphone, and, we were protesting the war in Vietnam at that time. And that seemed to be very unjust. And the carryover now in your generation was the war in Iraq for weapons of mass destruction, which were never existed or never found. So there's some similarities there. What we're doing as our nation has blood on our hands. I mean, we're removed, and it's sort of alienating in the sense that hundreds of thousands can be killed or injured, and it doesn't really touch most people because you don't see it and feel it. Back during the Vietnam era, the media was more vigilant and more proactive. They actually covered scenes. They wanted to become embedded, and you'd see the horror of the war, which helped actually end the war, I think, because average America was seeing this stuff and was coming into their houses at night before they went to bed, and they don't like that. But later on, there's this Operation Mockingbird the CIA do, where they put their contacts in the media, so that the major media it's infiltrated with CIA and things of that nature. And there's a policy now not to do that. That's like unpatriotic, to show the war field, to show the real blood. And therefore it's sanitized. So war becomes sanitized, and then it becomes sort of acceptable because, I mean, how much do we spend for defense every year? I mean, it's the biggest component of our budget by far. And that's, as I said, a lot of it's blood money. It's used to kill people for no reason, good reason, but just to kill them. So again, it doesn't sink in that what we're doing. I mean, I've not been on the battlefield, but I've seen people die as a police officer, you know?
Sure.
And it hits you as far as, you know, they're dead, they're gone. And we do that all the time. And then you see the loved ones that they have. Everyone that dies has a relative that loves them, or many relatives
Of
or
course,
friends.
yeah.
So it's like cruel and heartless, our policies. And that's not necessarily the United States. It's governments all over. Lots of times they're cruel and they're heartless towards their people. So here it's a little bit more, because it's insulated, we have more comforts, we have more distractions. That's what it is, entertainments. So we can get lost in our distractions. And the real world becomes like, oh, it's just out there, you know, it's not. But we create that real world by not being on top of it. That should really be our world. And if we want it to be a beautiful world, we can make it a beautiful world. We have given up our power to create our reality because we've allowed these idiots and these technocrats to utilize the media and to create their world. And somehow we have to sort of reverse that. Now, what's happened recently with the COVID and all that stuff, the pandemic, is where you have anyone that criticizes the official story to be blackballed and to be basically
True.
thrown off the platform. And, you know, in a way that's eye-opening, but it has to be reversed. It's a terrible situation. If it's not reversed, it'll just be more totalitarianism. So you have the footsteps of totalitarianism loud and clear. Some people hear it better than others. Some people don't even hear it. It's faint or it's not even existing for them. But others say, you know, that are involved in some kind of leadership capacity, that's what eggs them on. They can see the what's going to happen if it's reversed. They have not a crystal ball, but they take a crystal ball to see what's happening and how everything is being retrenched and rolled back. And I think people forget, and I know we forget, and we're not taught, that what we're experiencing in America today, and we have for a long time in this country, was unique to all of human existence up
Mm.
to recent time. This type of freedom never existed before, never. And it's because there's, I don't know, a lot of crazy, demented, power-driven people that usually get into power and keep it. And they keep it through the most terrible ways to repress, so that we have now some freedom where you can breathe and you can grow, you can explore. It's beautiful. But you can't take it for granted because there are people that want to turn it around. They want to roll it back. They want to take the freedoms away. They want to redefine human beings. They don't want to empower. We could empower. You know, years ago, took a trip around the world. I was gone for 6.5 months with a backpack. And I was in the high Himalayas. I hitchhiked the entire continent of Australia. I was down in New Zealand. I was at the top of Mount Fujiyama. I was in the shadows of Mount Everest. I stayed in a Buddhist monastery for a while.
Wow.
I was at the Taj Mahal in a full moon. I've been in the Cheops, Cairo, but I've seen third world countries. And I used to ask
Sure.
myself, why the heck, with all this aid we get, why don't the poor people have any kind of sanitation system? Everybody's sick. Everybody's in line at the the pharmacy, like in India or Calcutta. I asked the guy. I went in there one time. It was a giant line. I finally said, "What's wrong? How come there's so many sick people?" He says the lungs or the stomach. You know, but he has it. Everybody has parasites, or used to. You know,
Yes.
you travel on those mountains and with those, or in those places like Singapore I was in, and well, Singapore is actually pretty advanced, or Bangkok, Hong Kong, that's advanced too. But a lot of other places like Calcutta is like we're kind of run down, you know.
Yes.
But so I guess you get a perspective. So I have a little perspective on what's going on in the world, and I know what Buckminster Fuller said. He was he was a genius.
Yes. I know
He
who
was,
he is.
all right.
Buckminster Fullerene, his buckyball.
Geodosic dome, right
Yes.
down at Disney World. If you go down to Disney, you'll see his his geodosic dome there. But he said we could all live not like millionaires, but if we organize things properly, could all live like billionaires. So the emphasis has now been to restrict and cut back and say that's all. It's about lunch. It's all unnecessary. That's just to control people. In other words, any kind of scarcities are now, they're made to be scarce. The people who are dying from famines and things of that nature, it's all set up to do that. People don't have to. There's enough, if you organize it right, that people could be all taken care of with the material things, and then that's where the excitement gets. Because if people had all their material needs taken care of, then they could really develop themselves spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, and that would be that's the ideal, at least where you want to move. We're moving the exact other way now, right? We're not opening up, we're closing down.
Yes.
And that is not good.
As a nurse, I have to say that I agree with you, and I also have seen some of the developing world. I lived in Africa for about 1.5 years doing mission work, and that was in a rural part, but we had a lot of there was a lot of visibility of USAID and their assistance, but still there was so much iniquity and illness and despair, and so much of it that has just become completely normal. And it was so striking to me how poorly managed the resources of these great organizations must be, where I am usually someone that's so naive. I'll say, well, we just haven't figured it out yet, or we're working harder, but we need to work smarter. But the fact is that there is really so much greed and selfishness in this world. And I'm grateful that there are people like you who see the beauty and the other side of it, not just the silver lining, but people who want to make the world an actual better place, a more just place, a place that is more equitable. So I'm glad that you had all of those difficult experiences to lead you to the Lawyers Committee. And that leads me into my next question, which is, let's talk about the Lawyers Committee. It's a 501c3 organization. How would you describe its purpose, to the average person on the street, if you were on the subway or whatever? Oh, you work for the LC? What do they do?
Well, what they do is they're concerned about 9/11, and in particular with transparency and accountability in government involved with the crimes of 9/11. So we investigate and we litigate. And the transparency, you can look at it as and accountability, you can look at it as like truth and justice. You think of transparency, you think of seeing what's going on. So that would be truth. Accountability is really justice. So we could just say, our mission is truth and justice with 9/11 crimes, but we're utilizing those transparency and accountability. So what we've done is probably something that no one's done so far, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a grand jury petition. We have a petition, a grand jury going in the Southern District in New York City, where Ground Zero is. And what we did present to the U.S. Attorney, who got back to us and said he reviewed and read our petition, which was fairly long with a lot of exhibits. And the petition had to do, and the exhibits had to do with controlled demolition and explosions in the buildings, and the evidence we presented to them. And we wanted him to present it to a grand jury. He said he would comply with the law. The federal statute was the 18 U.S.C. 3332A, which had to do with presenting it to the grand jury. Unfortunately, it appears he never did, so we had to sue him. First round, we lost. We're in the process of appealing now, based on standing. And what they're saying is basically you don't have enough injury. I guess that's what they're saying. You're not in position to be able to bring the suit, even though one of the plaintiffs, co-plaintiffs with the Lawyers Committee and Architects and Engineers, is Bob McElvain, who lost his son, who was killed there. And there was one woman who's lost her husband, was a firefighter. She's a complainant. And another woman who lost her brother. He was a firefighter, a complainant. And one of them is a fire chief who has permanent lung damage from working on the piles, from the hazmat. He was the chief of the hazmat in New York City. So they're saying all those people that lost something, lost a loved one or lost their health, have no standing. This is outrageous. So within a day or two, the appeal will be filed, and we'll take it to the next level and all the way up to the Supreme Court. We have to see if there's some kind of justice that allow this evidence, which is very strong, to suggest or to implicate basically a conspiracy. You want to say conspiracy to basically set up those buildings to come down because of explosives and controlled demolition. The only way they could have come down like that. The official story is not scientific and it's not plausible. Office fires can never brought down a steel structured building. Building 7, which was the third tower that a lot of people don't know, was itself 610 feet tall. At that time, it would be the biggest building in 33 states. It was 47 stories. It came down at 6.3 seconds, and 2.5 of those seconds was free fall, which means nothing was underneath it. And the only way nothing could be underneath it is if everything was taken out. And the only way it could be taken out was exploding out. No one came and kicked the ball, and it just came down. Someone had to rig that building, and then pow, it came down in its own footprint symmetrically in 6.3 seconds, and only had minor fires. Okay. Inexplicable.
Right. And now from the study from the University of Alaska Fairbanks with Dr. Leroy Halsey, it confirmed exactly what you're saying, that the only way Building 7 could have come down as it did was the near simultaneous severing of every column in the building, which again supports this case.
That's right.
I want to go back. You said within a day or two, the appeal will be filed. So this is happening now. Like today is July 15th, 2021.
Mick Harris gave to the board a draft of we were doing 2 cases now. The writ of certiorari, which is going to the Supreme Court on another case in Washington. And that has to do with the 9/11 Review Commission. In 2014, Congress mandated an update on the evidence that had not been considered originally by the 9/11 Commission. You know, new things have developed. And they did a report, and we took issue with it because there was some areas that we thought should have been mentioned. And those areas were, 1, the World Trade Center explosive evidence that consists of our petition in New York City. All that evidence was never considered by the original 9/11 Commission. Then the incident with the high fivers of dancing Israelis as being involved, at least with the foreknowledge.
Sure.
And there was connections there with urban moving systems and a guy named Dominic Suter who ran that. And eventually there may be connections with the Mossad there. And then the destruction of that evidence, because we're trying to get those photographs or whatever they were filming. And we know from New Jersey, because we went into court in New Jersey, we did the Open Public Records Act, and we we appealed it because we know that the New Jersey State Police developed the film, and they gave to the FBI 78 photos, 3 sets. So there's over 200 some sets of photos out there, photo prints that were reproduced at that time, and that public's never seen them. So we're trying to get them. New Jersey wasn't cooperating as far as us getting that information. And then the feds are coming back and say they may have destroyed it. Now, if they destroyed evidence like that, which, with regards to, for example, the Security Exchange Commission after 9/11, a lot of people made money on betting of, doing what they call stock options, a put option. And all of a sudden, all that information is done away with too. So, in other words, you can destroy evidence and then it's not there unless, you can get some kind of accountability from a judge or a court. But anyway, so we count 3 of that complaint down in Washington when the 9/11 Review Commission had to do with the destruction of evidence. Count 4 had to do with Saudi financing. Count 5 had to do with the Pentagon cameras that nobody knew existed. We want to see the photos on them or the video. And then count 6 had to do with plane parts, because there's a lot of questions as to what plane hit what building, and were they the planes,
Right.
or were they
Right.
other kind of specially customized aircraft? So the serial numbers would tell us if they were. So we wanted to get a hold of that. Of course, Congress was never updated on that. And the last count there had to do with cell phone communications, because above 8,000 feet, you
Right.
couldn't have cell phone communication at that time. So we got denied on that twice, first at the district court and then the appellate. So now we're going to be appealing that to the Supreme Court to see if we can get a fair hearing on that. And it's even more complicated than that. In addition to that, now we're about to file a grand jury petition on the anthrax. We did an anthrax petition to Congress last year, and and we're still working in that area with regards to anthrax. We're also working on an area possibly of obstruction, and government obstruction, having to do with investigations and things of that nature, or allowing the crimes actually to happen in the first place. All right, so we're busy on those fronts, but what it means to the lawyers committee, this lawyers committee is nonprofit, so we are dependent on people's contributions to keep us going. And if people want to help us, then they go to lc4for911.org or lc with the number 4 911.org, and they can send a contribution. Nothing is necessarily definite that it's going to be here. It's as I say, but for the grace of God go I. So we are, we're trying our best, but within reason, we'll be still here. But we can't say a year from now or 2 years from now we'll do this. It's 20 years after the fact, and there's so many other issues that have happened. Whole generations now been reborn. They don't know 9/11. Okay, so some of them aren't as sensitive to, say, people that lived during it. So the landscape, the political landscape, is changing all the time. The demographics are changing, the people, and and we're getting older, and maybe we don't have the zest, or maybe we want to put our lives other places. You don't want to get too fixated with things, because then you become obsessed with it. If you become obsessed with it, it becomes a negative for you and with your loved ones. Take attention away from you people that mean something to you. And eventually it comes back like a boomerang later on, and you say, boy, oh boy, I didn't give that person the attention because I was putting all my energies into this, whatever it is. So 9/11 is important, but like any of these issues, I think we all have to keep it at balance to it, or else we become off kill.
I think that's a very wise piece of advice. I know in my own experience in the last year or so, as being like an outed truth seeker, it can be hard to find balance sometimes between, devoting enough energy to the cause and being able to tell when you need to step away from what can be other more negative aspects of working on this cause, because it can be really depressing. It can be very frustrating, experiencing so much suppression of this information in the media and online and on social media. Like you said, even with COVID, and regardless of what anyone thinks about COVID, historically speaking, people who have questioned the official authorities regarding COVID have experienced, censorship or getting thrown off of platforms. And for me and my generation, like I'm going to piggyback my next question off this. It's scary, it's disturbing, it feels like something I should be learning in a history book about, not necessarily the social media stuff, but just how contentious the social political climate is, I guess. What is your advice for generations of truth seekers that are like millennials and younger? Because some of them imagine the kid who's graduating college and about to go to law school who didn't live through 9/11. I mean, what would you want these folks to know? And people in my, I'm in my early 30s. I was a kid when 9/11 happened. Sometimes it feels like I don't have the ability to make an impact or make a difference. Do you have wisdom and advice other than what you've already shared with us? Because what you shared about finding balance, I think, is key and really foundational.
Yeah, I think that one of the problems I think we have is the electronic web we're in. We're sort of ensconced with all these. I mean, we were up in New York the other day, and we were doing a check of where we're going to be having an event. And one of the fellows brought a meter that I had not seen before, and he turned this meter on so we could see what the like their activity was, the microwave activity or whatever, the electric activity that's monitoring, and it was outrageously high with all these G5 antennas and stuff like that. So it's like so much stuff goes on in our lives and we don't see it. Even the food that we eat, and or the vaccines that we take, and or the air we breathe, the water we drink, and it's basically. I think to scrutinize, as I said before, to raise questions and to look at the value system of those who are running the society. If the value system is just for profit and it's sort of a shallow system, and maybe should be looked at a little bit closer. I think that actually I think we need a whole new consciousness. And maybe it'll come in with younger people to look at ourselves in a different way, in basically a cosmic way. We are a real mystery unto ourselves, and I haven't found, at least for myself in my travels and searches, the philosopher that basically knows it all or has the key to it, or the religious leader for that matter. I mean,
sure.
People are satisfied with their different interpretations of religion or existence, and that's fine, as long as you know it's yours and you don't like force it on other people. But at least for me, I'm still searching and try and make those connections with what you think brought you here, whether it be divine inspiration or divine happening that you happen to be at this time in your life, at this place, doing what you're doing. What brought you here right now? Did anything? And what are you supposed to do with it? And then what is it all about? I mean, I don't know if you want to go in that direction, but it becomes a philosophical question, especially when you have the ability to create abundance for everyone. Okay. So what's our philosophy, though? What is the goal of mankind now? Is it just to consume? Because pigs can consume, and horses can consume, and animals consume. We can consume. That's what, consumption is a big deal. And, buying the fancy cars or fancy dresses or suits or whatever. Or is it something, that's what we have to, we're at a point now where, philosophy is something that nobody looks at anymore. And they're dropping it from the curriculums. But that's exactly probably what we need more of, is more deeper thinking about what our destiny is. We are, here's something else. I camped out in Chaco Canyon with a friend. Chaco Canyon is in New Mexico. It's near the Four Corners area where states meet. And it's one of the four darkest areas in the world.
Oh.
In the world. So when I was there, we went to a little camp program in the evening with a ranger, and he was telling us a story, and we were there for a while, about at least an hour with him, hour and a half maybe. And then it was time to go. We'll go back to the tents and camp and stuff, and And just when we left, he said, you know, last time I was talking with a woman came up to me just after my talk, and she had the strangest look in her face. And I said, are you okay? And then, uh, and this is what she was concerned with. And then he turns this little light off that was near him when he was talking. And we didn't realize that it had gotten dark, you know, because the light was on. It was dusky when it started. So now all of a sudden it was dark. And my gosh, everybody's mouth dropped. And then when she says, oh, because you could see the Milky Way, you could see yourself there. It was like you've never seen anything like that before. Like I've said, uh, it just was like you just want to get down on your knees. And then they had a telescope there outside, and you could go and look at the telescope. I did, and I'm looking at the rings of Saturn. I said, my God. And then they had another telescope inside. I went in there, and then I'm looking in there, and I'm seeing not our galaxy, which is huge, hundreds of millions of suns, of stars. I'm looking at, I think it was Andromeda, another
Galaxy.
galaxy. And I'm just saying, oh my God. And we're like a little speck of dust. You know, there's a philosopher named Nietzsche
Mhm.
who had a lot of insights, and he says, he says if we could get inside of the head of a mosquito, we'd find out that he flies around the world with the same self-centeredness as we do. You know, he was making a joke of it, but we're like little mosquitoes, like we know everything. But I guess what my thing is, we don't wholly know anything. We don't know where we even came from. We have amnesia in the sense of what our roots are. I mean, they keep on changing. They take us back to the Olive Gorge and stuff when you go to high school or in college and different courses. And this is geologically how old mankind is. But if you take it back, I mean, it keeps on changing. But what is this all about? Are we, is the Bible right? Did woman come from the rib of man? Or was that, I mean, is that just an analogy or, a allegory,
Mhm.
or was or do we have are we stardust? Were we planted here
Mm.
from somewhere else? And or are we DNA experiment? And then there are writings about that will say that. I don't know. I mean, I'm open to hear all the different arguments, just like a judge would be in a court of law. You would want to hear the arguments. Okay, let's hear the arguments, but let's put it on the table. Let's be serious about this. You think you know where you are? Where is the Earth? Tell me where the Earth is, okay? I'll tell you. Down the corner? Is it 3 blocks to the right? Is it 1,000 miles to the west? Where's Earth? And then where are we if we're on Earth? And and then start there and have some humility and just look at your
Humility.
fellow man. You look at your fellow man and say, boy, we're in the same boat here. Let's have some compassion for each other. Let's figure this out. Maybe it's a big joke, but it's our lives. So I mean, if that's a philosophical bent, I mean that's not. I mean, most people they might even like I'm going to turn your program off, turn your table. What's this guy? He's acting like a nut. Well, that's where I think you got to go if you want to get to center yourself a little bit, and then it's not like you're centering yourself. You're just trying to. All right. So the work is a progress to try and, I think, better yourself, to try and get more insights, and to try to get a sense of passion for life, to be able to put your love, what you feel, into making something better for yourself, your family, your loved ones. So if we all did that with the earth, we wanted to make something better. You want to have 9/11s? I mean, you got to be demented to do this. You got to be
Hmm.
so like low on the totem pole. If there's a such thing as karma, these people are going to come back, worse than, cockroach. If that's, I mean, if there's such thing as that,
Yeah.
transmigration of souls. But if this is the only time around, why did you blow it like that? What is this with
Literally.
power and with the, all the drug trades throughout the world and killing people for drugs to get them on drugs? And why can't you just say, let's enliven people. Let's, make them, uh, let's elevate them. Let's allow
Yes.
them to reach their potentials. Everybody has some talents. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, some people can jump and with a basketball and do incredible things, or with a baseball. Others can fly a kite or fly an airplane, or tell a joke, or just make you feel comfortable. Everybody has different talents, or make you laugh. And it all makes you happier, or could make you happier. But then you got that demon side, and if it is a demon side, that we create, a hellish existence.
We do.
Yeah.
I appreciate your message of humility. It's a powerful message, a deep philosophical message I was not expecting, and it makes sense why you're able to do so much incredible, you and your team of the lawyers are able to do so much work, because I can see the deep roots philosophically that you have underpinning all of the work. Thanks for letting me see behind the curtain there. And I agree with you. Having seen the Milky Way myself a couple of times, I know it's one of the most humbling experiences. And personally, I'm very into, star watching and, dark night, etc. So I know how powerful an experience can change you. And I think that it is these deep philosophical questions and things that lead us more in a direction of like humanism instead of materialism. I hope in my lifetime somehow that the acquisition of wealth will no longer be the driving force in most of our lives, but society might have to collapse first for that to happen.
Right. And you know what? It does help to have a little money.
Yeah, it does.
Have some freedom. But that's the way it's set up. It's the carrot that you're always following. It's always kept, so you're always going to need a little bit more. And then you don't have the time to, think and to want to act in a different way, or to plan, because you're limited. But the limit is imposed by those who rule. That's the way it's supposed to be. They have all the time in the world to plan, to keep in control. All you're trying to do is try to keep yourself and your family together, and get, and take care of them. And they have all kinds of ways to make it hard, so that it becomes a chore your whole life, where you can't concentrate on things to make it better. So to me, it's by design. The society is set up as a control mechanism. Politics is a control. They want to control people. Governments are set up. That's why the founding fathers were so cautious, and they had a jaded look at government, and I have the same look. As I look at government, I don't trust it. Unfortunately, it should be our government, but that's the problem. It's not our government. It's their government. And they're pretending that it's our government, but we have no power and control right now, because it's not our government. So I guess the thing is, in getting back to our roots in the ground here, our boots in the ground, is let's take our governments back. And then we can go from there. You have to take the governments back, and you have to decide somewhere how you distribute the wealth, in the sense of, not in a bad way, but in a way that you don't have poverty, and you don't have some of these extremes. I mean, there's too much, becomes an obscenity, where some of these people have so much and everyone has so little. It's obscene. It's a sickness. Yes. Or it's a demonic sickness. But it's not, again, it's not to lead to balance, for sure, or to a happy world. That we can't make the world happy when it's not supposed to be happy, because they don't want to be happy. They want fear, and they want panic, and they want subservience. They don't want freedom. They don't want people to be outspoken, and they don't want people to dream in a way that could liberate them and just make it a better place. Right? They're very negative. So I guess we got to not want to be get contaminated with their negativity, because it's all toxic.
Yes.
It's all toxic. All the stuff you bring in. When I was involved in politics, that's one of the problems. When you get involved in politics, you've got to go into the cesspool, because that's where they are. You have to go in battle with them. If they rip your signs down, then you have to decide whether you're going to rip their signs down. and you get into a thing where I wouldn't normally do this, but because I'm playing in their park, now I got to act a little bit like them. So you start compromising yourself, maybe some of your
Sure.
values. So you start, if you go into the cesspool, yeah, you're gonna be, you're gonna have the aroma that you were in the cesspool. So that's not cool, right?
I get you. I'm so grateful there are folks like you and other folks on the LC who are not part of the cesspool and who are actively working to um, keep doing the thing that is more difficult. You know, I mean, you guys aren't doing this because it's easy. And that's another JFK quote about, we don't do things because they're easy. We do them because they're hard and obviously necessary. I have a big question for you before we run out of time. And I want to talk about, you alluded to it. You alluded to an event that's coming up, and I want to talk about that. And that is the 20th anniversary commemoration of September 11th. So this year on 9/11/2021, it sounds like the Lawyers Committee has something going on in New York City, and I want to make sure that everyone knows about that and gets excited about that. I will be there. I already have my tickets for New York, so I'm hoping to help out behind the scenes and stuff too. So I will see y'all there who will be going. But do you want to talk about the event a little bit so that everyone can know what's going on?
Right. Well, you're right. It's 20th anniversary, and it's amazing. 20 years since it happened, and we want to commemorate it in a big way. Now, some of the speakers will be there in the earlier time will be either there personally or be put in remotely, or James Corbett, who is well known,
very exciting.
and Whitney Webb, who is
Sure.
top-notch investigative journalist, also Reiner Fuellmich, who is the leading attorney in reference to COVID, probably in the world right now. He's really awesome. And we'll see. He said he would be there. This was some time ago, so we have to confirm that.
Sure.
And then Graham McQueen, who's from Canada.
Oh, wow.
9/11 expert.
Yes.
And Kevin Ryan's another 9/11 expert and whistleblower. He's a scientist. Francis Boyle, who is the originator of the treaty, bioweapons treaty. He developed that. He's an expert in bioweapons. He has some interesting topic. I won't tell you right now what it is he wants to do. And then there'll be Christopher Gioia, Commissioner Gioia.
Oh, sure.
He'll be there, and there'll be Merle Nass. She's an expert.
Oh, Dr. Nass.
In anthrax. In fact, she worked the biggest anthrax attacks were out in Rhodesia during the Civil War there, and she was there to administer to people who developed anthrax. It was cutaneous there at that time. And then there'll be Barbara Honecker, who is a top researcher and on our board of directors, and has written books and worked in the White House or that area in Washington, D.C. And then Harrison, who's our litigating director, who is working on a lot of these cases right now. And then I'll be talking. And then the Truth Action Project, right? We'll have some speakers, or a group of speakers, or so we'll hear from the Truth Action Project, who, as I said, is helping us out a lot, the Lawyers Committee, by doing a lot of the grassroots work, sort of one of the muscle work that you have to do in the streets to get people to be aware. All right. So that's part of the card. Now it might change. I forgot Gary Knoll, who is a top-notch radio host and health guru, and also an expert on many topics, who's done a lot of investigative journalism in form of books and also in videos. He'll be the MC, Master Ceremonies.
Wow.
I hope Ed Asner will join us, at least be zoomed in from California. And Ed is on our board of directors, and he is very, of course, supportive of what the Lawyers Committee is doing, because he's part of it.
Yeah. Sure.
So that's why anybody that can make a contribution, be most welcome. That's LC4FOR911.org. and the money will go to good use.
Yes. So we can support this very important event for the 20th anniversary of September 11th. 9/11 absolutely still matters, and we have to keep the momentum going. Now, on the day of, you guys will take donations, etc., at the door and all that. Maybe we'll be able to get some merchandise if we can.
Right. Yeah, we'll be asking for donations. We're not sure, but it'd be probably $15 or $20.
Sure.
And of course, if you can't afford it, you don't have to give it. But it would be nice. It would help us pay for the costs of the church, which are
Sure.
rather expensive, and we have to get a screen in there too, a big screen and a projector. So that's extra that we have to extra so many thousands of dollars actually to do that. But we will have a table set up where you come in, and we'll have tables. We have the Lawyers Committee has shirts, probably about 25 shirts that people can get buy if they want. It'd probably be about $20 a shirt or $25 a shirt, and different styles. But and we may have a book table there too, and things of that nature. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting day, and it may be a reflective day. It is 20 years now. And then we'll have to see if the momentum builds or if it peters out. It could go either way. It could be say, okay, it's closure, 20 years time, and that's enough. I'm moving on. And other issues to do with my life. Or it might be a recycling and take it to the next level now, because there are levels to go. The Lawyers Committee, if it can stay together and do what we possibly could do, we end up doing the investigation the government should have done, but not to the extent that they're going to do it. We don't have the tools, but to lay out the really prominent points that a grand jury could appreciate, and they could go in and then develop, because they do have the means. They do have the subpoena power. They can call people. They can make deals. The prosecutors can make deals with witnesses and things of that nature, and they can pull records, get telephone records or whatever they have to do, bank records. We can't do that. We can just point and say, hey, this is this and this, or we can talk to some insiders maybe if they're willing to, and share that information with the grand jury. But in other words, if the Lawyers Committee doesn't do this work, I don't think it's ever going to get done. All right, so that's where we stand.
It's so important.
Well, it is important if you want to have some truth and accountability, and then you'll have to see if the government has the mechanism to handle it. That's why we're in the courts now. This whole thing with the right now, Mick Harrison is going to be architects and engineers are going to use him, or they're going to, he's going to be working with them also to litigate a matter in the World Trade Center with regard to Building 7.
Yeah.
Now, so we're doing it from different angles, and if we could get a breakthrough with the grand jury petition in the Southern District, it's earth-shattering. Because that means that people will finally see the evidence for controlled demolition. Now, the suit that looks like it's going to be filed, I guess, will have to, on Building 7. That is going to be interesting too, because Building 7 evidence is overwhelmingly contrary to the official story. I mean, if you could get any kind of fair hearing, you're going to win the case. You should,
Yeah.
But I've seen it where it doesn't happen that way. You think you're going to get it, and you don't get it. So we ran into New Jersey because, I was involved with that. And we should have had a better ruling in New Jersey. But the 3 judges ruled against us on an appeal. And that was trying to get somewhere with regards to the photos of the dancing Israelis, and we were down to having finally identified possibly the initials of the person who the photos. That's what we wanted to get a deposition from, or not a deposition, or a statement from, and they denied it. And
Wow.
they know why they did that. I mean, that was, they did, because I think they denied it because maybe the guy would have told us exactly what he did with those photos. And besides getting them to the FBI, see, we were concerned that maybe they had them, the state police had their own copies too. Okay. So, or we wanted to know exactly what was on those photos too. It'd be nice to know. What were you watching and at what time? How did you know that to set up and document this event?
Right.
And what you set up, was it before the event even started? You started filming, and then go from there, and you know, find out who put that in your ear to go there and sit on top of this moving van and start videotaping and then high-fiving each other and dancing around when the event is happening. Not too cool. All
No,
right?
yeah, it's very
Americans don't know that.
suspicious.
Most Americans don't know that. All right, and
Right.
the TV doesn't tell them that. But they were key witnesses and or suspects. All right.
Well, the work that you're doing is so important, and I'm super excited about the 20th anniversary event. I'm looking forward to meeting you there and so many other folks. I think that it's about time for us to wrap up. Just coming in over an hour here. David, this has been really special. I've loved hearing your deep philosophical thoughts. I'm really excited to understand what motivates you and keeps you going. And it's inspiring to reflect on the things of how did we get here where we are in this position where we're trying to speak out about 9/11. And it's because we've understood that we've been lied to repeatedly by our government that is for itself instead of for us. So I'm so grateful there are folks like you who are working hard for this cause. And again, for everyone, I'm going to put the links in. You can find it in the comment on YouTube or in the caption if you're watching this on Facebook. It's lc4911.org or lc4, the number, 911.org. And then we're hoping to see all of you, as many of you as possible, who can be in New York on the 11th, 9/11/2021. We are going to have an incredible event the Lawyers Committee is going to put on, and I'm sure it's going to be extremely valuable and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that no one wants to miss. So thank you guys for putting that on. I'm looking forward to hearing more about the appeal that is going through in the appellate court, and on following more of what's going on with the Lawyers Committee on your guys' website.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me on your program, and thank you for giving us that exposure. All right, for the 20th anniversary. That's great.
Oh,
and looking
absolutely.
forward to seeing you in New York City.
Yes. Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, and I will be meeting you in about 2 months.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Julia.
All right. Take care, David.
Bye-bye.